Career Center panel. So thank you for inviting us to join in tonight.
Absolutely. So we were planning on having David Pretty, but Tuesdays and Thursdays are really bad for him. But he was lucky. We were lucky enough to have him get in touch with Mr. Stockton and Mr. Chambers from Arlington County Public Schools. So yeah, the chief of staff and the director of design. So we get to hear straight from the horse's mouth tonight. So that's going to be awesome. So we'll quickly run through our treasurer's report and membership update. We'll dive right into our Career Center Q&A, and then I'll blow through some neighborhood updates and upcoming events, and then I'll let everybody get back to their Tuesday evening. So in the till, we have $3,801 as of March 22nd, 2022. And we have 50 with an asterisk current dues paying members. So Mr. Stockton is with us here this evening. He is the Chief of Staff for Arlington County Public Schools. You want to say a little bit about yourself, Mr. Stockton?
Hey, you got it all here. But basically, Brian Stockton, I joined Arlington Public Schools on July 15th of 2020. I look back now and what was I thinking to join a new job in a school district in the middle of a pandemic? But we've gotten through it. And basically, we've managed to, I think hopefully we're in the last, I would say the anchor leg of this whole thing. One thing we want to do is basically really get back to focus on academic achievement. We have a lot of things that we're going on right now. We want to become a more data-driven school organization. This Friday, we will start displaying our student progress dashboard. This is the first iteration of it. There will be improvements to it, but we want to use data to drive our organization. We think that also being transparent with the community is very important. I would say that we're turning the corner on a lot of things. We focus a lot on managing the pandemic, but we want to focus on getting back on the working on the Career Center. One thing I would like to say, one of my first tasks when I joined the organization in July of 2020, is that I worked on the after action of the Career Center working group. And basically I was able to work with our auditor, and basically it was a process that just didn't have any guardrails at all. We had a $184 million budget, but when we finished with it all, I think we ballooned up to $234 million. Right now with this project that we have, we put a cap on it, $170 million. Mr. Chambers, who you hear from as well, we're doing a great job. He's doing a great job at making sure we keep a cap on that, and also be able to provide the community with what it needs at the same time as well. So happy to be here. Thank you all for having me. And me and Jeff are going to tag team all night. So
excellent. Can you hear a little bit about you, Jeffrey?
Yeah, no, no problem. I'm an educational facility planner as well as an architect. I've been working on educational facilities since, I'm going to say this will be my 4th decade doing that. So it's been a while. But basically, I've always been looking at best practices, and as part of it being an educational facility planner, I've been doing facility studies for districts as well as individual buildings. So I've got lots of experience with regard to that. I joined APS in August of 2016. So I was through the first iteration of this process that culminated about 2 years ago, actually a little more than 2 years ago now, that Brian did the after action on. And I think we were trying to be all things to all people, and basically didn't have the guardrails of the budget. And I think that, the board was not willing to go the direction that all of the input took us to get to where we got to with all of the input. So I think they refocused, and we helped them refocus to what was really needed, which in this particular project is the Career Center is the only high school that we have that really hasn't been touched. And in fact, some high schools have been touched twice since they've been promised having improvements and upgrades for the programs at this building. In fact, some of the labs are still pretty much what was there in 1974. So essentially, this project is to provide all of the programs, the spaces that they need, and bring them into this century with what needs to be provided and how it gets used. So I think that's essentially what we're trying to do here, is work within the boundaries that the board has set for us, and the budget that the board has set for us, and still provide the students with what they need, as well as tie it into the community, so that we meet community needs with the facilities we provide with the students. So that's essentially our goal. That's the purpose of the BLPC, PFRC process, is to make sure that there are facilities, the facilities work with the community as well as for the students. Yeah, I think
yeah, I have some slides here just as a quick primer. I'm sure some folks have and have not been following this process in depth. Currently, the Career Center site, as mentioned, is home to obviously all the services within the Arlington Career Center, which was built in 1974. The site is currently home to the Montessori Public School of Arlington, alongside Arlington Community High School. So yeah, this has been a very ongoing process, ebbing and flowing for several years now, but recently it's been included in the FY 2023-32 Capital Improvement Plan direction on October 28th, 2021 school board meeting. And yep, so we're just running forward with that. So you might have stated some of the project goals. The goal of the Arlington Career Center project for the school and parking garage to be completed within a maximum total project cost of $170 million. As Jeffrey mentioned, the BLPC process will invite public feedback on the elements identified in the Public Facilities Review Committee. And yeah, so unfortunately, and this is part of what we're going to talk about, this process will not address the long-term use of Career Center at campus and opportunities for improvement on, and long-term use will occur within the process for review and adaptation of the 2022 or 23 through 32 CIP process. So here's a little bit about the project schedule and where we're at the moment. Let's see, let's say March 2022. So we're going to be heading into that third meeting. We had the January, February meetings, concept design, and then the next phase will be schematic design, getting into the use permitting, pre-construction set for around October. November 2023 school board construction contract would be a go, and then we'd be looking at, in terms of construction, a December 2023 beginning, and with an end date of roughly December 2025, and then April 2027 project completion date. So here's a little bit about the schematic of what it's going to look like here, and we can continue to reference this up and back, but as you can see here, this is South Wall Street Drive is what we're looking at. It's going to be a 5-story new building here. Montessori Public School is going to be, along South Island Street with a new field there in the middle. This is what the bus lane is going to be looking like here, that U curve there. So folks, the buses can come in from South Walter Reed and cut through South Highland and use that U to get up and across there. So what I did for the Q&A is I took most of our feedback, and we can kind of go through these one by one. And Ron, feel free to jump in if you have similar questions. I tried to segment these by topic, but just jump in if you have any additional questions, concerns as pertinent to the topic at hand.
Mary Ann, please jump in. You've been going to the meetings. So she's been driving the point. She's been our point man in our civic association. She's doing a great job.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
As Christine has for us. So I'm very appreciative of all her fantastic efforts. So the first topic we'll jump into is public space between the existing Arlington Career Center and the new Arlington Career Center and subsequent new field. So the revised site concept proposes an area between the existing ACC and the new ACC field that would support bus and service operations during the school day and would resemble a public plaza at other times. So we were asked, as all the associations neighboring the Career Center were asked, what features of this proposal do you like best? So we were in strong agreement that preserving as much of the open space on the site as possible is extremely important. And that green space is just obviously very important. We're big on tree canopy in the neighborhood. We're big on green space here in Penrose. And from that perspective, we support the creation of a pedestrian plaza. However, we do not believe, or we do believe that it's important for buses to have the ability to exit directly onto South Wall Street Drive for traffic flow. So have you heard anything regarding the ability for buses to exit out onto South Wall Street Drive?
Yes, actually, as part of the current plan, and I think we'll be going through that at the next meeting and clarifying. Essentially, we will have buses that will come in from South Walter Reed Drive and drive through the site. Those buses would be able to drop students. Essentially, we want to make sure students are dropped off on the door side of the bus, so they're not crossing in front of because of the safety issues that incurs. Should the existing ACC building be utilized in the future for a facility, say if the MPSA building wasn't there or whatever, we would be exiting onto South Walter Reed Drive, and basically it would have to be a right turn. The other thing that we're looking at that is going to happen is with 9th Street, and as part of the Complete Streets project, they will be actually signalizing 9th, and it will have a left turn lane. So we believe that a lot of the buses that currently head north on Highland and or out on 7th will probably turn left on Highland and exit onto South Walter Reed Drive, right or left, with that left turn lane, because it will make travel much easier for the buses to get out, because 7th is a short light coming from 7th, and it's very difficult sometimes to make that left turn. So that is one of the things that we're hoping. One of the things we're trying to do with regard to planning, and some of your questions that I've seen, is the overall planning of the site is, we've been charged with a certain direction by the board. There's a maximum amount of students that will be on site, and we are looking at how the site will work with the completion of this project, and also making sure that whatever we create as part of this will also be able to be planned to work without an MPSA building and or without the legacy career center building on the site. So we're trying to, this is like an interim step, and we understand that, but we also are not trying to build something that we're going to modify down the road. We're trying to create something that will be lasting and be able to be utilized. So, we are planning, we are thinking ahead. The only problem is our budget doesn't have us, the funding. One of the things that was looked at in the last CIP is possibly moving Montessori into the existing career center building, and removing that and adding a field. And at that point, we were looking at about $50 million. So that was not part of our current charge. But one of the things that there's a parallel process that is happening along with this project, with regard to the board actually directed with the last CIP, when this was directed to move into concept design, we were also directed, facilities and operations is working on criteria to evaluate all APS facilities for condition and usability from an educational standpoint, et cetera. And working with the FAC committee, we are coming up with that criteria, which will be provided to the board with this CIP. And we fully anticipate that they will be directing staff to evaluate all of our facilities, so that we can look at things with regard to budget, with regard to capacity, with regard to mechanical systems, with regard to educational adequacy, et cetera, and rank all of our facilities, because the board believes with the current lull in population growth of students, that they'd like to get back to the process of renovating full facilities and bringing them up to current codes and standards. as there have been some buildings that have not been touched, other than with the MCMM process, which we've tried to keep facilities, in good condition. But there are things that we have to look at with regard to facilities. So once that criteria is established, we're going to look at all facilities with all the same lens. And as well as, right now we're down a few thousand students in our population. We have to look at where the students are, what the demographics is, and what does that mean with regard to all of our facilities. Essentially, we don't want to put all of the eggs in one basket, so to speak, and, create something and then find out it's in the wrong place. So we want to really look at how do we provide equity for all of Arlington rather than neighborhood by neighborhood. And I think that's, the biggest focus of what the board has directed us to do. And that's, we're going to be looking at capacities of buildings. The MPSA building is one of our smaller buildings. One of the things I've been saying for 6 years is it's one of our smaller buildings that has about the same footprint as the current Career Center building. So it takes up a lot of space for little capacity. In the study that was done during COVID, it also has mechanical systems that need work. So I don't know where that will fare on the list, but it's something that we will be looking at as we would move forward.
Yes, sir.
Hi, can you go back to the thing about the pedestrian plaza real quick? So maybe you guys know what that means. I don't, and I've been to several of these meetings. What is this? A pedestrian plaza, what is it?
Essentially, what we're doing is between Walter Reed and Highland. The new graphics with the next project will actually show this better. But essentially, passing in front of the library between the new building and the existing building up to Highland Street would be a paver type system. It would be done with pavers rather than standard asphalt. We haven't designed it yet, but pedestrians would be separated from bus traffic. We're looking at on the campus itself that the only thing that would be on campus would be the buses during pickup and drop off, which would also include students coming from the other high schools for the CTE classes. There would be access for loading and supplies and materials, which is not a heavy use at any of our facilities. And also for the autos that are done in the auto body, auto tech program would be on the site.
So,
but essentially,
I'm sorry, you're in a nutshell, it's so people can walk to buses and walk around.
Correct.
People, not the community at large, but the people who are there to work or students or something like that.
Well, and we're also thinking it could be a place for, a future market. It could be some place that, on weekends and non-school hours, it could be used for fairs, et cetera, because it will be close to traffic.
I get it. Okay. There was something else that Stephanie put something on the chat here, and it's something that, we've all been concerned about.
Oh, Terry, if you can read that, I can't see the chat at the moment. Having the
well, she's asking for a chart showing the Career Center campus and the volume of students compared to other schools in the county. And I remember I did a lot of research on this when this all started. And basically, this school would have as many, if not more, students than the other high schools, with at least between 8 to 14 acres less of space than the other high schools in the county. So honestly, I really thought this was dead off the table. That's what we were told, a year ago or two years ago, and we were all very happy about it. I think both neighborhoods, because we didn't like the way this was going at all, and now it's back. And what I hear you saying is you're not sure how you're going to program it. Things are going to move around. You don't want to build and change it, like the construction part of it, not the programming part of it. But what we're super concerned about is the crowding of students in there in our neighborhoods and the parking And now you're talking complete streets, which again, with Walter Reed involved, having buses and people driving and students, and we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people driving to this site every day. And this is like, Walter Reed is one lane of traffic each way, you know?
Jared, do you mind if I interject? I have a few more slides coming up about specifically
Okay.
South Wall Street Drive, so maybe some of that might get addressed, and then I'm sure we can have a little bit more time at the end to.
Look at the chat, Alex, at what's, because I think I answered it, Stephanie, if that was your question.
Okay. So
Okay.
for the next one here, we want to go into what are the other question that was posed to us, or what are other alternatives or suggestions do we have for the area of the site, including the curb cut along South Wall Street Drive, that may strengthen alignment with the principles of civic design as laid out by Mr. Chambers here. So we felt that APS needs to plan for accessible access to all buildings on the site. And given the small size of the site itself, some of the curb space along South Walter Reed Drive may need to be utilized for purpose. And that it would be difficult to do that in the narrow neighborhood streets surround the site, such as South Highland Street, specifically due to cars tending to queue there for pickup and drop off. So we were thinking about, the queuing of cars.
Yes, we're still studying that, exactly where that's going to work out and how that's going to work out. And that will be, you have to remember, we're in concept design right now. We will be moving, if the board approves the concept design, moving into schematic design, where we're going to get into more of those details. Setback, height, and parking will be set with the S3A zoning of that by the county with the use permit. So that's where that final number will come from. Currently, we are still planning the parking garage with a working number of 400 parking spaces in there. And that is subject to change. And we are still working on the traffic and parking study. And some of that is movable with regard to complete streets and what the county is going to be doing with Walter Reed. And we are coordinating and cooperating with them on how that works. But we're also looking to make sure that we have handicapped accessible parking. One of the things that we committed to, if you recall, that we added 2 accessible spaces at the front of Fleet. We added a couple at, actually we added 3 at the Heights building that were easily accessible for disabled. It's actually the new kind of handicap parking where you can hug the curb if you have a disabled driver, and you can hug the driving lane if you're unloading a disabled passenger. So it's a new thing for Arlington that we're coordinating with. Not thrilled with the lining that they put on it because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but the space is there. But anyhow, we will be looking at that, and we are fighting with regard to making sure that we maintain that access at the front of our buildings. There would be probably short-term parking noted at certain areas around this site. We will modify that. I think we had with the Ed Center process or project up at Washington Liberty, we took an area where it's actually metered parking, and during pickup and drop-off time, that is now designated for short-term pickup and drop-off, and something similar to that would probably happen here. As I saw somebody noted the issue with Fleet, and we, you notice we have the signage that we worked with the county to make sure we had pickup and drop-off area, during the school day near the building for parents and people, in a short time going into the building. We will be looking at that again. But all of that has to be taken into account with the available parking spaces with regard to the parking study. And we are still working through all of those issues, where the parking would be. And based on the study, there is significant amount of available parking in nearby the site. And we are, making sure.
What does that mean, nearby the site?
Within a block or two of the site. There is parking. We have a parking study that you can look at as part of the study, as part of the work that we're doing. I don't have the data in front of me or the graphics.
Well, I'm asking you are you talking about our neighborhoods or are you talking about a parking structure?
I am talking about neighborhoods in addition to the parking structure.
That's okay.
Okay, so I think we had a question here about on-site parking. Let me find it here. So we were asked, this may get into some of your questions here, Terry. How appealing was it to us as a neighborhood would be in regards to expanding the parking footprint around the existing Career Center building if it were to modify the shape and or height of the above grade parking garage? So we felt that we were in strong agreement that this is rather unappealing. We felt it obvious that it was important to maintain as much open space on the site as possible, that these areas can be utilized at a much higher value as green space or open space. Our personal neighborhood preference for parking needs to be addressed with the smallest possible footprint. We support surface parking lots that are ADA accessible, as noted above, which should also include limited spaces for parents and midday students for pickup and drop off. Adequate parking is essential, but we believe that the parking should be structured, ideally underground, i.e. the lever run model for principal and action. And we agree that the site should accommodate the full parking need and not push parking into the surrounding neighborhood. So obviously you guys are in the planning phase of the parking, and there'll be a full-on parking study. So I think maybe we can see how to weave in those concerns about the parking bleeding into the other neighborhoods once that process continues to take shape.
Yeah, I think that there's still more information to be coming. That's something we're going to be addressing as we move into schematic design and getting more into the detail and working with the county. I think we are fighting and have been fighting for as much on-site parking as we can do. We are looking at the structured parking only because it gives us the most parking for the least amount of cost. And underground parking is unaffordable. We found that out with the last project. It would be about $40 million to put the same amount of parking underground that we are putting in a structure for about $10 to $12 million. So that's the difference. That's where we're looking at, and funding is limited. So that's one of the issues that we're looking at. We moved it from the last process. We were looking at 7th and Highland is where we had the parking structure. We're now looking at it to be across from the ECDC parking structure and having the access off of 9th Street. So it's not having the access off of a residential street per se. We have heard the groups making comment, is it possible to have more than one entry or exit? We are going to look at that. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. I think 9th Street makes more sense for the access to and from the garage. And I think that that's one of the things that we're going to look at the Fleet garage. We do have all of that exiting goes out onto South Oak Glebe Road. And it's never really been a problem when the garage empties or fills up. It's never been a huge concern, and that would be what we would envision here with faculty and staff and those that would be using the structure. And the structure would be operated the same way. We don't charge for parking, but we would operate the same way as the Fleet garage is, which would have it open until, I think it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then it gets reviewed by our night rover who goes through and makes sure that everybody's out. And then they close the garage door. And then it gets reopened at like 5 or 6 in the morning. But that's essentially the way that operates. And it's been working fine from that standpoint. And community does use that parking structure for events in the auditorium, as well as events at the community center.
So the next one we'll go through here, strengths concern with the revised site plan. So as a positive note, we definitely appreciate the attempt to break up the massing along the site to make it less dense adjacent to South Wall Street Drive and MSPA. But on the flip side, this has been probably one of the biggest concerns we've heard from Christine and other residents in the neighborhood, the lack of a long-term plan here. We still want to know essentially what is going to be taking place with the existing AZC building and the existing MPSA building. Is one going to be torn down eventually? If so, which one? We believe that APS needs to plan for this now in advance and be proactive about this so this plan can be best designed while we're still in those initial planning phases here. Trying to site plan now without answering those questions, in our belief, does not make sense. We continue to note as a neighborhood that the site development along South 9th Street is preferred versus that along South Wall Street Drive, concentrating the density of the south end of the site, as APS has previously proposed, creates much more open space and also allows South 9th Street to be utilized for buses. So in addition, we would definitely opt to ask you to please consider traffic queuing and directing your attention to the line of cars that forms around Fleet Elementary School for daily drop-off and pickup. And to tack onto this real quickly, how is traffic going to be managed alongside the Career Center site? And we definitely hope that there will be openness to planning for such traffic patterns during the construction phase, which may not be manageable. So. And then lastly in here, we strongly believe the campus needs a full-size field and are, again, concerned about the loss of open space on the site. So has there been any forethought about the traffic queuing at this point in time?
Yes, we actually have been looking at the traffic queuing, and we've been looking at how this is all going to work and how we would do that. That's, again, part of the traffic study. There's a lot of dependence on the county and the complete streets and how that works. So we're coordinating and cooperating with them as we work through this. I think with regard to the building being on 9th Street versus South Walter Reed, I think one of the biggest focuses that we're doing here is we are looking at civic design principles, and we are lining the building along the street so that we have for the future behind the building all accessible. If, for instance, the MPSA building is the building that disappears, or the existing Career Center building is the building that disappears, we need to be ready for that, and that's part of what we're doing as part of the overall planning at this time, as I had mentioned earlier. The field that's being provided will serve the needs of the school, will serve the needs of the program that needs to be there, and it's absolutely much more space than they currently have for use with that grass field at 7th and Walter Reed, which is not in the best of condition. This would be a synthetic turf field, and it would be available for student use, and would be available for community use, whenever daylight, because we would not be lighting the field at this point in time.
So I think this slide here, just, I don't want to regurgitate these again. These are, we've covered most of these here.
As I said, I think we have to look at the pros and cons of both facilities, and I'm not going to say which one would stay, which one would go, but I already made the comment that both of those existing facilities on that site have about the same size footprint. One can handle 700 and some students. The other one, or maybe up to 1,000, and the other building can handle 450. One has a relatively new mechanical system. The other one has an ancient mechanical system that needs reworked. So capacity and condition are things that we're going to be looking at as far as the overall facilities. The Career Center actually has 2 stories of space that allow us to would allow APS to do more things there, rather than having to do an addition and alteration to an existing building that needs a lot of work. So, and it's sprawling and spread out over the site. And that's what we're trying to do, is build up, not out. We really were excited about the 9th Street building that we were looking at, but part of the reason that the cost went where it did was very simply because we were trying to do a phased project on an occupied building, which is one of the reasons why the board went the direction of looking at a new building, because we actually were looking at additions and alterations as some of the other ideas that we were looking at as part of the CIP. In fact, one of the projects, or one of the options when we did the CIP was very similar to the concept that we had 2.5 years ago. And the board elected to go this direction.
Right. Thank you. So I just want to
This is Christine Brittle. If I can just interject for a second, I don't think that what you just said is a fair characterization. The reason the cost keeps coming down is APS keeps taking square footage out of the proposal. On a per square foot basis, the previous proposal was not more expensive than the current proposal. So I think that's misleading. And I would like to know if you feel like with the existing proposal, you could ever put a full-size field on the site, even if you take down one of the existing buildings. I think that's something that you should show. I also think it's misleading to say that that half field that you're proposing meets community needs. Arlington is growing. There's a real issue for field space. And that field that you're proposing is not usable for any current sports that are played in APS. You're also not allotting any field space for the elementary school that's on the site. So again, I have a lot of concerns about that, and I don't think the answers that you're giving are accurately characterizing what you're proposing.
Well, everybody's entitled to their opinions, but I do want, the bottom line is I did not say that the field was for community use. The field meets the needs for the school use, which is what
for the
APS
one
is.
school, for the high school, only for the high school.
And we are also providing, can I finish, please? We are also providing, as part of the reimagining of the play space surrounding the MPSA building, we are putting in synthetic turf there, as well as playground space for their use as part of this project. And as far as the cost goes, the cost per square foot is significant. Well, we'll be having costs when we get to the end of concept. We're still working on them, but they are appearing to be much less per square foot than we were looking at 2.5 years ago, even with inflation.
All right, well, we can follow up on that because I've run all those numbers and I highly disagree, but I think I'd love for APS to show that if that's the case.
Let me just check the chat. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? Anything from you all, Ron, over at Columbia Heights you want to touch upon?
I actually, no, you guys covering all the topics we talk about, and I agree with the problem with the traffic going into the neighborhoods. That's been a concern for a while. And also another part that has not been mentioned, the impact on the small businesses on the Pike. We got to make sure we don't take any more parking places away for those guys to be impacted by the additional activity in that zone. And there's a lot of small businesses that need parking. And it's very tight right now. You know about the towing practices they're very aggressive.
Oh yes, our good buddies at Advanced Towing and A1.
Yeah,
Great.
Advanced Towing, they're brutal.
Oh yeah. Stephanie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and also Catherine has a couple of questions too. So about the Jeffrey, you had mentioned before the full size field. So when you say full size for the high school, full size for what? Does it fit soccer, softball, baseball?
Physical education programs.
Okay, so
no sports.
So no sports. Okay, so not even softball or even junior t-ball. And then I did put in the chat, there's some of the NIH studies talking about the concerns for synthetic turf, including off-gassing and other issues. So there's been long-term studies and concerns about whether synthetic turf is actually safe and healthy for the kids, especially when they're growing. So is there something that you guys are looking at? And I realized that you both mentioned ballooning costs. However, when we're looking at you know, the health of our children, especially long term, because these kids are my Social Security payers, because I'm one of the 80% who does not have children in Arlington County. When you're looking at health concerns, have you looked at synthetic versions? Like what is healthier for the kids and the staff
Yes,
in
we
other
always do that.
facilities?
Yes, we always do that.
So which version are you currently looking at using, and what's the healthcare, long-term healthcare studies on those?
I don't know the particular type. What we're using, essentially what the county uses for their fields.
Okay, so one caution, when they were doing light studies and they claimed it was dark sky, nobody actually tested or confirmed that it was dark sky compliant for our different lights. So I would ask, please take a look at the actual reviews of the products that you guys are using. So don't just say, oh, that's what the vendor said. Please investigate it. And I know by us where I work, we talk about penetration testing and other validations by independent auditors to help with this. So I asked about the synthetic testing. Okay, so the traffic queuing, and this is where Alex had asked if you could shift back to the map. So some of our Arlington Heights neighbors, and I know because I have friends that I visit on the 7th Street periodically, queuing over on Arlington Heights tends to really dump into Highland Street and then also spills over into 7th. So one of the concerns about Montessori schools in particular, does the Montessori school have a higher volume of parents with cars and drop off? Has that been considered? That if we would move the Montessori someplace else, it would also lower the queuing volumes?
Yes, we've been looking at all of that with regard to the traffic studies. And we have more to look at.
Okay, because when I was trying to dig around on the APS site, I was seeing, you know, high level things about just recordings of the meetings, but I was having a difficult time with any indexing of the materials. So like you said, there was a parking study and there were some other studies.
Yeah.
Can those links be clarified or pulled out on the APS site for the Career Center to help us when we're trying to say, okay, what was the study done? What was covered?
Yeah.
Like if you look at the form-based code, some of our site plans, the newer stuff, not the older, we list out the landscape plans separate from the building plans. Parking, you can tell by the front page of the appendix, excuse me, the front page of the table of contents and everything. So I would ask if you guys could take a look at the APS site and help simplify it a little bit and provide some direct links to some of these reports to which you're referring.
Yeah, I think if you would, I think the best thing to do would be, I mean, all of the data and the information is being handled by planning and evaluation, not design and construction. And just put on the engage page what you would like to see as a request.
Okay, and I'm asking any channel I can. I've learned that works with government. So I'm open.
No,
if you
I
speak to
think
your
I
colleagues.
think that's the best way, because they organize the website, they organize the pages for this project, etc. So I think that would be the request, or best place to make the request to get a response.
Catherine, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I had put a couple of comments in the chat, which I know people did look at. Thank you. But I wanted to really emphasize the fleet situation is not tenable. I mean, I guess it's tenable because people are living with it, but it's a very bad idea. In addition to the teachers circling the neighborhood looking for a free space, which is, of course, very difficult for the teachers, they're taking up the spaces. I know you talked about 5-hour parking placards, but they're taking up the spaces that the neighborhood needs. I don't know why there wasn't more parking there, and I don't really want to talk about fleet except that I want to make sure we don't do that again.
Well, Catherine, I want to just say, with
all right,
you're singing to the choir. I agree with you. I have already told the county multiple times that we can't do what happened at Fleet. We have to provide adequate parking on the site. Now we have to figure out what is adequate parking and get them to agree to it.
Good. Let me just make a couple more quick points. As Steph pointed out, the Montessori school is she didn't use this phrase, but it's a magnet school. When it was Henry, some parents drove, but some parents could just walk their kids over. and the fifth grade could ride bikes because, a lot of people were in the neighborhood and there are far fewer neighborhood parents going to Montessori. So we've added something that means more cars. When we add a high school, when we update the high school, more students will be driving. I think when you make these plans, you need to think really hard about how many cars are going to be there. And expensive as it might be, spring for a parking garage that is going to accommodate all those cars. Or, as we've also had pointed out, maybe, I hate to sound like a NIMBY, move the Montessori school, but it's sort of like we're trying to put not a round peg in a square pole, but a gigantic peg in a little tiny hole. There's just, we are increasing, the building's shifting needs are increasing the number of people in a limited space. I don't know how much control you have over that. But we just want to, we in the Penrose Neighborhood Association wanted to bring that up and point out there's a lot more people coming to this area than there were before, and where are we going to put them all? That's our concern.
No, we understand that. We are looking at all of that, and we will continue to look at all of that and make sure that we make the best decisions we can. And we have to work with our partners at the county and make sure that they work with us on that. We have a budget that we have to work towards, like everybody does. But I understand where you're coming from, and we're trying to make the best decisions we can, not only for the neighborhood, but for the students that will use the building. So we do understand that. I'm not sure Montessori is best placed in an urban environment, urban neighborhood, so to speak. They might be better placed in a different building in a more, quote, natural area. And that's something that teaching and learning is going to have to look at, what we're going to look at with regard to the facilities overall. And maybe there is a different place for them that's going to come out of this other study. So let's see where that goes and work with us, and we're working with you.
Thank you. Pete, you have a question?
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's just a reminder that I was on the Career Center working groups, the 2 iterations. And one thing we talked about in that group was using the parking lot at the Career Center to support businesses on the Pike. And that was part of the vision of the Jewel of the Pike, was that it would serve many purposes and not just the school. So when you say you're locking it down, that's contrary to what we had thought about and agreed upon in the previous iteration of these meetings. So I wanted to remind you about that. One thing that holds back Columbia Pike from becoming a destination is a lack of parking. And so I think you should put that back on the table. I'm glad to hear about the schools looking at another place for Montessori. If you can't find a place, I think we need to lobby the county to find space for schools. They keep building more buildings, more kids are moving in, and they absolutely do not have any plans to expand spaces for facilities. So that's a problem that's going to raise its head not too far in the future. And that is all from me. Oh, wait. How many parking spaces is in the garage? Because I remember before it was 420 was considered the minimum we could get away with. Is it that many? Oh, wait, I see it. 400.
It's 400. We're
Okay.
at 400 right now. At that time, we also had the Arlington Community High School was still on this site.
Right. Arlington
So
Community
without
High School.
Arlington Community High School, we reduced it down to about 400.
Okay. All right,
But
that's all from me.
Yep.
Anyone have any additional questions or concerns for Mr. Chambers before we jump into community update?
Don't you have a question for Brian?
No, I feel like
Actually, that is where I was going to go next. This is Steph.
I feel like I'm Jeff Chaperone here tonight.
Well, no, your programs you talked about in your past life, you did some nutrition programs and other stuff. We have a really nifty little garden there, and there's some other gardening, looking at the advantages of having different types of green space, green walls, green roofs, growing for the kids, helping to teach them where their food comes from. In all of this, with all of the hardscape, the students, the buses and all of that, is there a place for the green roofs, green walls, and garden space in all of this? Has that been addressed yet?
We will get into more of that detail as we get into schematic design and then into design development. But if you look at some of the renderings, and you'll see after the next BLPC meeting, there'll be some more renderings that are coming out. There are some green roofs, and we can do some growing areas on the site as well as on the roof. We have mixed results with our green roofs and with our green walls and green gardens and such. Our school year really isn't the best, because actually when the kids aren't there is when the things are growing the most. And we have limited resources with regard to roof terraces are essentially taken care of by custodians who are also responsible for the interior. And some buildings don't get taken care of as well as others. And that's, a housekeeping issue. So we have to be working on that. And that's another thing that goes into that. But yes, at this point in time, we are considering greenery. And we'll be developing that further as we move forward. One of the other things is with regard to the Montessori, they have gardens and whatnot that they utilize along with the koi pond that they inherited from Henry. And we're going to be improving those areas as well as part of the playground improvements that we do around the Montessori project.
So with that, looking at the custodians for taking care of some of those things, I'd encourage you guys to work with the urban, I think it's FUA, the Friends of the Urban Gardeners in Arlington. But we have a lot of renters in Penrose. We have 5,000 people in Penrose. There's another, I think, 6,000 down by you guys in Columbia Heights, I think, who also are a lot of renters and stuff. So put the word out, because one of the things that we had trouble with Arlington Public Schools, it's difficult sometimes to use the space for either meetings or arranging other things. So taking a look at that longer term maintenance agreement, if you can get it so the volunteers can come in without having to have individual high cost policies. And where I'm talking about with that is, as a neighborhood association, we have to have sometimes $1 million insurance policy to host an event in a park. So consider flexibility with that, because you can get a lot of volunteers to help take stuff, to help with the green roof stuff, if we can get access to it.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Brian, I think that one was for you.
So no, that's it. Perfect. It's basically, we would definitely take that into consideration. When we're doing things like this, we're so focused and good ideas, just like the one Steph gave us just now, just come out to help you. And Steph will definitely keep that in consideration. One other thing I would like to say, I did feel like Jeff chaperoned tonight, but one thing that Jeff said that bears repeating. I think that there was some recommendations about some of the plans that we have out there. Please, I can't say it enough. Use the Engage site. I have a team of people who are combing through that. I'm meeting weekly. I have planning meetings. I spend 3 hours a week going to planning for this. And so we're combing through all of that information, all concerns. We try to address them. So again, I just want to put another plug in for just any comments or issues that you have. Also, I think you may have a representative who's speaking to this community about what's happening with the BLPC. So just make sure you're giving all that feedback to them as well, so we can consider it. I think we're running a very good process, a tight process, and basically we don't want to ignore any good ideas or thoughts in this process. So again, just encourage you guys to work with your BLPC representative at the same time, and also use the Engage site as well. So I don't get to answer any questions, I just get to make statements. So thank you. Yeah.
So Brian, I was going to say, Brian, we are a little jaded because I think, Pete, this is your third time through this. And, the first 2 times we were told it was too much Christine, how many times have you been through this now with Career Center?
I mean, I've been engaged with this for 6 years or however long now. It's been a long time.
Yep. So Steph, I would have to say that, and I think Christine is on the BLPC, I think, or she attends some of the meetings, but
Yeah, she
Yeah,
does.
I'm the Penrose representative currently.
Yep. And so what Christine can definitely tell you, every meeting that I host or facilitate on the BLPC, I said, this is the group that's going to get it done. And I don't mean it in a perfunctory manner, none whatsoever. There are other things that happen here. Like, oh, that went back 3 superintendents ago. Well, it's not going to happen with us. We're going to make this happen. And that's why we're running such a good, tight process. And that's why I encourage the feedback as well. Steph, this will be the group to get it done. So,
Well,
I think though, Brian, if I can interject just for a moment, this is Christine Brittle again. I mean, I've heard you say that, but I've been very frustrated with this process, and I'm sorry, I just got back to my computer, but and I've heard this from some of my other neighbors as well. The planning process that we went through for the last process was a very different vision for the site that concentrated the density of this building along 9th Street, that preserved the possibility of having a full-size field on the site if at some point in the future the Montessori building and the community high school building were torn down, both of which APS is now contemplating. So you would have the opportunity to have like a football field size on the site with a lot of open space. And that was what we had been talking about with the density concentrated along 9th Street. As you said, the price for that came in high. But the price for what you're talking about now is a 2 or 3 stage process, however many it's going to be. By the time you build this project along Walter Reed Drive, you tear down, if you tear down the Montessori building, you renovate the existing Career Center building, possibly for Montessori. The dollar value of that is going to be exactly what we were going to talk about before. It's going to be very much the same, but you will have lost the opportunity to have all of that open space on the site because we are locking in a long-term possibility that does not allow for a full field on the site. And I just think that APS is just opting for convenience of construction. I strongly disagree with your assessment that on a per square foot basis, this plan is any cheaper. I've run all the numbers. I've been on all these work groups for 5 or 6 years. All that's happened is that every time APS proposes a smaller square footage, and that is why the cost is going down. We are not reinventing cheaper ways to build. The building cost is what it is. All we're doing is building in a way that takes up a lot of square footage on the site. And this shift to move the building from 9th Street to Walter Reed happened with basically no public input after, as Terry noted, we all thought the project was dead. So we thought the project was dead and there was not a lot of community engagement on it. And then this new proposal came out of the blue, and all of a sudden this is the one that APS is going forward with at 100 miles an hour. So from a community engagement perspective, it has been very frustrating. And the way that you're structuring these meetings now, everybody's in a small group, so no one's had a chance to say that to the large group. So thank you for coming to our Penrose meeting, and I'm saying that to you now. This has been a very, very frustrating process.
duly noted.
And I also think too, when you talk about the total cost of the project, I think Jeff noted earlier to renovate the building for Montessori is another $50 million approximately. And that's not in any of the numbers that you're showing right now. So again, to the extent that this project is $50 million cheaper than the last project, it's only because we're pushing that to some point in the future.
Sarah, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, it kind of, I agree with everything Christine just said. And I think, although I didn't go to every single meeting, I have been engaged since the very, very, very beginning when they started talking about moving Patrick Henry over to TJ, which I was adamantly opposed to. But I agree with everything that Christine said about public engagement. We thought this was dead, gone, and everybody was so relieved because this has not been an engagement on the part of public schools. They have not been very honest and upfront with this, with either community on either side of Walter Reed. So it is very frustrating. And then, yeah, it comes up out of the blue and it looks like it's a done deal and there was no community input on this. And it's kind of embarrassing.
Okay, on that note, any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody? Terry, your hand's still up. Are you?
Oh, I have one more thing.
Okay.
So,
And then we're gonna move on.
yeah, in my opinion, this is being done backwards to forwards. And honestly, if you're gonna move the Montessori, move it. If you're gonna move the high school, move it, and then look at the site, and then start building level, and budgeting and all that stuff. What you guys are doing is just backwards. It's piecemealing it. It's just gonna make the construction go up. We're gonna get less than our communities deserve and the kids deserve. And as Christine noted, yeah, that people want fields. It's all kind of off the table the way we're doing it now. But move the pieces off of the map and then you have a new map and then you could really do a plan. So, okay, I'm done. How do I get my thing off? Okay.
So-
Okay. We're gonna go through community updates here. Mr. Stockton, Mr. Chambers, thank you both so much for joining us this
Thanks
evening.
for having us.
Appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to the pending traffic study, everything going on with the South Wall Street Drive, Complete Street. So this is an ongoing process, and we'll keep staying engaged with it.
Great. We appreciate the input.
Yep.
And I do want to say that we spend an awful lot of time reviewing all of the input that we get, not only from the
Absolutely.
meetings, but the comments afterwards and everything from Engage. And I can tell you that it all does go, is looked at, is all considered by the design team as well as everybody at APS. So it is heard, it is read. Unfortunately, we can't go with everything that everybody says. We have to pick, the direction that we need to go based on the input that we've received. So thank you very much for having us, and we look forward to talking to you again, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Alex.
Great evening.
Good night. Perfect.
Everybody else, be another 2 minutes, and then we'll be out of here. So I just want to run through some community updates. I don't know if Joe Everling's on tonight now. So the dumpsters at Fillmore Gardens, one of my first pet projects when I took over, those have been moved, yet still not fully replaced. They have those small little rusted holes at the bottom. I've written the woman herself who did the inspection and asked her, how did they come to the real, determination that these don't deserve to be replaced, given the fact that they're rusted at the bottom. God knows we have mice in my place right now. Those little things, they can slip into any kind of little crevice. So the holes that are in these garbage cans are more than enough space for them to get in, keep chewing up the garbage, and then that gets spilled onto the, parking spots and parallel to the garbage can. So it's a lot better being that they're not along the fence, but I'm still pushing to get those fully replaced. So hopefully I hear something back. It's been a little while. I'll just keep pushing them with that. Shopping carts at Penrose Square Giant. This has been my biggest pet project since I took over. I forgot to add the photo to the PowerPoint, but I found where they're all being hoarded. 1201 South Courthouse, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this on my phone.
It's keying out.
Yeah, let me put it a little bit closer. But there are like 40 shopping carts chained up behind, I guess it's Dominion Tower, behind Trove or the other apartment complex. So I have sent 2 very well-worded, very formal letters, physical letters with letterhead from the association to their vice president of consumer experience back in December or January. She went ahead and called our local Giant store, and I had gotten in touch with Mohammed, who's our local store manager, and he said, oh, yeah, they're working on it. So I didn't see anything. My request was pretty simple. Can't you just go ahead and install a GPS wheel lock so that folks cannot push them out of the vicinity of Penrose Square? This is a parent company worth upwards of, or a retail grocery chain with a parent company worth upwards of $20 billion. You think they can maybe install some GPS wheel locks as seen at Harris Teeter and all these other grocers? So now they're ignoring me. So now I'm like thinking, maybe I can go to, Arlington now and pitch a story. I mean, it's just gotten so bad. It's really embarrassing. And I used to work at this Giant. I used to do the parcel pickup, and it just drives me crazy. They have no concern to secure their own inventory. And until Senator Scott Servell's bill gets through the General Assembly that says that retailers are responsible for their runaway carts. You know, I know they're all in Ron's neighborhood. They're just everywhere. So I really would like these to get secured, and I'm going to keep pushing at this. Heather, Steph, or let's go with Steph and then Heather.
So yeah, definitely send that picture into Arl now. They do love
Steph,
the
I'm doing this week. Yeah,
okay, yeah, they love the
Yeah.
embarrassing fun pictures. Penrose a number of years ago when we had the large telephone pole that county staff insisted could not move. And it was in smack in the middle of an ADA compliant ramp that they had just poured new concrete for.
Yeah.
It took those photos and man, within a few months, it got fixed. So use media to our advantage.
And lucky for us, I actually met Jo DeVoe. She's one of the frequent columnists on Arlington Now. So now I have a personal relationship with her. So I'm going to send her a little message and say, hey, let's get the ball rolling on this. And, you know, and it's not about, I have no beef with our local Giant store at Penrose. I used to work there. I love the staff there. They're very aware of what I'm working on. Very, very appreciative. This is corporate responsibility, and corporate responsibility at Giant Landover, they have dropping the ball is far too generous of a statement, in my opinion, at this point. So they need to get it together and judge some initiative. So I think going with the media, as Christine Brittle and I have been working on this, or not Christine Brittle, I'm sorry, the other Christine. Christine, I'm forgetting her last name for the moment.
Have you?
Yeah, but other Christine. Yeah, so we're gonna go, you know, 7 on Your Side, Arlington Now, all the local media outlets, and get something out about this and put them on blast. I guess that's literally where I'm at right now with it. I'm sorry, Heather, go ahead.
What did the property managers of these buildings say?
BM Smith, they've done nothing. they just like do nothing.
Well,
so I've heard from the county that it's not the property manager's responsibility, it's the store itself, so Giant corporate. So, you know.
But BM Smith owns that building.
Right. I'm aware. I know Ron's
thing.
written them a million times about the parking situation there, and they just sort of, you know, out of sight, out of mind. They haven't done anything.
Well, does BM Smith own Trove, like over there, and like the actual apartments? Or are you talking about they own the Giant?
So they own the property of the Giant.
Because I'm talking about the property managers of the buildings where the carts are living.
Yes. So I need to walk back there at some point. I have the GPS like exact location. I've been working on trying to decipher whether it's Trove or the other complex behind it. So I'm also absolutely going to be reaching out to the property manager and letting them know, hey, you know, these are like, and they're chained up, stockpiled in, you know.
So they're stealing
in there.
And that's why I never can like find a cart when I go.
Yeah. Ridiculous. And
the other thing is, if you don't get feedback from the property managers, let me know and I can try to find out who the regionals are, and the regionals will usually light a fire, and you just keep going up the chain, because if they're chaining the carts there, every time I go, I'm lucky to find a cart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll keep you posted on everything. And I've tried to look for literally a regional manager from Giant, like in their headquarters is in Landover, Maryland. I'm like, I've asked our local store manager here, who is your superior? Who is the regional manager for the DMV area here, or for Arlington and Northern Virginia? And he's like, oh, I don't know.
I would talk to the managers of the apartments where they live, because when I walk, I see there's a ton on the other end of the courthouse at the Shawnee Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I went yesterday and there was 3, so I was like, oh, that's nice. But before there was a lot, and I told the manager about it. And then after a day or 2, they must have gone over and picked them up. But I would definitely reach out to some of these apartments that are keeping all the carts. I think my apartment is pretty good. Every once in a while, I'll see a cart like in the hallway. But we can just push it back to the loading dock, and we certainly don't like keep them like in the building.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'll keep you posted on that. This week, I'm going to reach out to across the pike and reach out to the property owners and the apartment managers to say, hey, I got a picture here, like 40 carts behind your complex. So we'll start with that. If they're not cooperative, it doesn't get anywhere, I'm going to go right to Arlington Now at this point with it.
Because if they're chained, I feel like that's stealing.
Yeah, Yep.
If
Oh,
no
yeah.
one, if no one can take it, and if no one even can take it back to the store
Right.
if they wanted to.
Oh yeah, and I got receipts for days on this, so I'm ready to go. We'll keep you posted about that this week. Oof, it's like gets me excited and pumped up today. Shopping cart. So next, dog bag dispenser at Heather's request. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. I wrote them again. It's like pulling teeth with the county bureaucracy. And I asked for some additional signage just to keep some, just put another, please pick up after your dog. Terry was talking about the trash there. They can't even get a sign installed. I don't understand what's taking so long. They're like, oh, Mr. Sakis, we'll go through your request. And it's been like 2 months already. I'm like, just put a sign in there. This is so simple. So I'll keep pushing away with that. On a good note here, I was able to get the property on South Y Street, housing Green Echo Cleaners, cleaned up. So I got a great picture of that. Not this one. A little blurry here. But this place, I rarely walk through South Y Street. I live on 9th and Rolfe, so this is a little bit further up the street from me, or further up in the neighborhood. So this place had broken glass, overgrown weeds, trash everywhere, rusted railings, and I've heard numerous complaints. This place has been sort of a huge eyesore for, in perpetuity at this point. So I just called the number on Google, and that was listed on Google, and I managed to get a hold of the property owner, Ehab. Very nice gentleman, and he was right on it. I wrote him a nice email. I said, hey, I got numerous complaints from residents in adjacent streets, and we would love to get this cleaned up before I go the route of, county issued citation. And he goes, absolutely. He immediately CC'd me in with the gentleman who owns the current occupants, and they got it cleaned up within like 3 days. So all the trash is gone, freshly painted, white railings there, and the weeds are removed, and the truck is going to be out of there momentarily once they get a hold of their new facility where they'll be moving the truck. So that's good. Yeah. And if anybody walks by there and it gets dirty again or whatever, just let me know and I'll get back to you about it.
Especially if there's a shopping cart there.
Oh yeah, and there was. It wasn't a giant one. I said, do they have the black handles or the purple handles? So Terry and I have been working on a project. This is all Terry's idea. I give her all Buku's the credit for this. I don't want to get too into the weeds about this shed. It's kind of TBA. We're looking at potentially having the county acquire a property parallel to Penrose Park, which would in turn expand the green space on Penrose Park and help us expand and naturalize the area and add some more tree canopy. So once we get more details on that, I don't want to start speaking for the property owner in the county at this point, but that looks like there's a lot of positive feedback and interest in that, so that may be a go. So thank you, Terry, for bringing that up and getting a great letter draft and moving forward with that. We greatly appreciate that. And the biggest thing that happened in the neighborhood, the Elliott on the was it 2600 block where the CVS is. That's a go. That was approved by the county board recently, the last few days, and we're ready to go. 247 new apartment units, and that's huge. 50,000 square feet or something, So a new ground floor retail grocery chain. They're keeping a very tight lipped about what it's going to be. Probably Amazon Fresh, we'll see, but so that'll be cool.
And then why don't you promo April, the Penrose?
Oh, yeah. Oh, next slide. I got that. Absolutely. So this is what we did last month. We had a great trip. So I'm vice president of the Arlington and Junior Chamber of Commerce. So I try to kill two birds with one stone when it comes to community events last month. So February was Black History Month. So we all took a trip to the Black Heritage Museum. Here's all of us here. Here's me, here's Pete, and there's Scott Taylor in the middle, the executive director. One of my biggest, disappointments about the Elliott coming in is that these folks are going to get displaced alongside all the other, tenants there, Attila's, and the hair salon and the shoe store there. So we're going to be losing having the Black Heritage Museum in Penrose, which I had so much pride having here in the neighborhood. So they've been bouncing around for a while. They were up at the former SunTrust Bank, and then now they were here for about a year, and then they'll hopefully have a permanent spot. I talked to Scott. He said they have plans to move in somewhere else close by along the pike. That'll be a bit more permanent, so that'll be great. So, and then to your point, Terry. So here's some stuff on the horizon. I've been dragging my feet on this website update this April, we're gonna get it together. We're gonna get our website all revamped, accessible, all that good stuff. Currently, I think my name's listed on there, so we're gonna get that all ship-shape. We're gonna do an April 22 membership drive and fundraiser. We got a bunch of great T-shirts to sell that say "Proud to be from South Arlington." You may have not seen. We're gonna do another Penrose historical walking tour at some point. And Terry and I have been talking about a Penrose pickup day. So we're going to do a big trash collection day, partnering with the JCs around Earth Day. So that would be great. Go around Penrose Park, the bike trail, which is just a pigsty. My biggest pet peeve: people that let their dog go potty. They pick it up in the plastic bag. They tie the plastic bag, and then they chuck the plastic bag in the woods. So would it have been better, more environmentally friendly, if they just let the dog poo and not pick it up instead of putting plastic in the store? It just drives me crazy. I don't know what these folks, they're just that lazy, and they can't walk the another 20 feet to the dumpster. It just drives me up the wall. But so we'll pick it up. We'll take a bunch of pictures with huge trash bags and make an example of everybody, making the place a pigsty.
But this is a neighborhood, we want everybody to do it. We want everybody to go outside for 10 minutes and pick up everything in front of your house in the street and bring your coffee out and say hi to your neighbors who maybe you haven't seen since COVID. And it's a good chance to reconnect and clean up the neighborhood too. So
absolutely. And then, so I'm very passionate. I would love, anybody who's interested. We're going to need a new executive board this year. Stephanie's going to be leaving us as form-based code rep. She's been phenomenal. And Pete will be moving sometime in May to Alexandria. Not too far, but we're losing her as well. So essentially, I'm going to need a vice president, a new form-based code rep, a new treasurer, and a new secretary. So if you have any interest, my door is open. Write me anytime. We would love, as far as form-based code goes, to have somebody with a bit more of an urban planning background that I have. 25-year-old recent college grad. I'm not an urban planner, but I read as much as I can, go to as many meetings as I can. But we'd love to have somebody really, as passionate about stuff as she's been, to really get in the weeds of things and be some backup to me. So if you have any interest in joining the board, just let me know. We're gonna put together a job listing this week and get this all sent out via social media. So we would love to have you. And lastly, if you have any ideas for anything you want to see, anything you want to do in the community, always just drop me a line at penroseprez@yahoo.com or send me a DM on Facebook. My door is always open. And with that, I will see you all next month.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.